I think the fundamental concern around Islamic schools at the moment is the money that the parents pay. They are paying I got to criticize that saying, caveman's days fees and expecting today's education. That doesn't work, I'm sorry to say. Not short of a revolution now, what is happening in the childcare sector in our country at the moment. The government is investing massively in it. It's one of their biggest election manifesto commitments that they've made.
Do you know how much we're talking?
Well, we're talking about hundreds of millions, but already 300 million plus has been pledged just to create more spaces. If that is the case, we estimate that over the course of the year, each child should bring a revenue of £6,000. So if you've got 7 kids, £42,000.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Ibrahim Khan. Welcome back to the channel. With me, I have a very special guest today, Ashfaque Chowdhury, all the way from Birmingham. He is a Muslim education activist who was behind setting up and running and being involved with a number of Muslim educational organizations, such as the Association of Muslim Supplementary Schools, the Association of Muslim Schools, and the Muslim Homeschooling Network as well. Ashfaque, welcome. Jazakallah khair for making the time.
Jazakallah for having us today, and it's a pleasure.
So Ashfaque, you come bearing good news for stay-at-home mums that there are fortunes to be earned in the preschool nursery sector right now that people are not fully aware of.
Absolutely, and I call it not short of a revolution now, what is happening in the childcare sector in our country at the moment. The government is investing massively in it. It's one of their biggest election manifesto commitments that they've made.
Do you know how much we're talking?
Well, we're talking about hundreds of millions, but already 300 million plus has been pledged just to create more spaces. So you can see the scale of money that is going to be invested in this. And as I said, the childcare provisions in this country as a minimum will triple, if not more. The other thing that is happening...
So hang on, how does that work? So you said, so right now nurseries are already oversubscribed.
Correct.
And the nurseries are funded where your child is above 3, right? So my kids have went to nursery and you get that paid for basically for I think a certain number of hours, right? 30 or so hours that is funded. And then now what's happening?
So now what's going to happen is that those that are oversubscribed. So the government had to scratch their head and think about, okay, where do we create the space, right? So one of the areas that which I'm going to exclusively talk about at length today is that they're opening the floodgates for at-home childcare. And what they're saying is that people with reasonably good-sized homes can actually open childcare provisions in their houses. Purely, I have seen that people are, for very small children, people like a more personalized care. People are much more sensitive, for very small children, like how they eat, what kind of food they eat, how's it warmed up, what kind of dress they wear, how they clip. I'm getting well trained now as a stay-home dad, 1 day a week. So I'm telling you this.
So moms and dads could do this.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So let's say you've got Ashfaque and you've got, let's say, Farida.
Yeah.
Right, and they're a stay-at-home mom or dad.
Yeah.
And they can now take on kids. They might already be homeschooling, for example, but they can take on kids from as young as
9 months old.
9 months.
9 months old.
Fully funded.
Correct. Well, there's a little bit of a catch to that. The government typically gives you 85%.
Okay.
Right. So for every pound, you are technically meant to invest 15 pence. But some providers sometimes offer some kind of discounts, so that 15 pence could go even further down. But as I said, typically your investment is about 15%.
Right.
Which is, compared to what people are investing now, sometimes you would see there's a lot of sisters who are investing almost 80% of their wages in childcare and walking away home after working full-time, just 20% of the wages.
Yeah. And the average, and so, stay-at-home moms who are interested in this, or dads, I guess, we were talking off air and you were saying that the minimum part-time salary that they should be able to achieve here is about 22,500
as a part-timer.
Part-time.
Right? As a part-timer.
22,500.
22,500. Let me give you an easy maths. Typical local authorities across the country, the per hour childcare rate is about sometimes something between £5, and if you come central London, like Westminster and whatever not, that'll be about £80 an hour. If that is the case, we estimate that over the course of the year, each child should bring a revenue of £6,000. So if you've got 7 kids, £42,000. Bring that downwards, maybe you don't want to work during holidays, right? There are some parents who do that, and they would do the out of school hours. For out of school hours, there's no restriction of age. You can have children of any age.
Right.
So you would be registered officially, approved officially, insured as well, to keep children of older age. So you can keep children up to 15-year-olds, 16-year-old in some cases as well, where those children come to you before school, you drop them off to school, you can take these children along. And then at the end of school, those children come back to you again and stay with you until their parents come back from work.
And what's the maximum number of people you could take in?
The interesting part is that sort of 6 to 7 you can just do yourself.
In
6 to
average-
7
in average
children,
house.
depending on their age, of course.
Yeah.
If it's 9-month-old, the ratio is a bit more, sort of less,
Sure.
and if it's slightly older, the ratio is more. But you can actually employ up to 2 other people with you.
Right.
So you're setting up. We don't call this a sort of a childcare. We call this mini nursery.
Because what you could do, you start off pretty low, right?
Yeah.
But very quickly, if it's going well, alhamdulillah,
Within a year, you decide
could move
to
to a
employ.
premises, right? If you wanted to.
Yeah, this is the other interesting part, which is not fully out yet, but there is now a government guidance that says 50% of your childcare, total childcare hours. So, for example, if you were to do, for example, extended services, you can do on a commercial premises. For example, this premises here, if you've got mums who are working here, would rather love their children to be near them, so could pop in over lunch to
Yeah.
see how the baby's doing, that option is now open. So 50% of the time, as of now, they can actually do it in a commercial premises.
What does that mean, 50% of the time?
So if, for example, they offer childcare for 8 hours,
Yeah.
4 of those they can do it in a commercial premises.
Right. Interesting.
Right? But what is happening, there's a bigger change that's coming, which is not out yet, but it's in the pipeline, which is the government is now deciding to push schools to, if they don't want to do it themselves, to offer that space to people who wish to do it.
Oh, I see.
Right? So a secondary school which typically don't have childcare provisions in them, but they have a lot of female staff and some of them have small children. What will happen is that the government is pushing them, and this is where the 300 million plus is coming, is for them to utilize those spaces, like free up a room, give it to a person who's a registered childcare worker who can do the childcare from that premises.
Right. Interesting.
So commercial premises like this premises, schools, community places, masjids. That's a lovely place. If a sister now decides, actually, I've got this local masjid of ours, which is never used during the day, or, you know, Asr Salah, Zohar and Asr Salah is there, but apart from Jummah is never full. You can go and approach that masjid saying, brothers, would you give me a bit of space in your masjid? I'm going to offer you some rent. That could offer a lifeline to some masajid which is perhaps struggling to pay their rents and rates. And what would that mean is that the masjids could act as hubs for looking after. Some of these masjids are fantastic, beautiful buildings, state of the art, well made. It's a fantastic use of the premises.
And how, Ashfaque, do people find out more or get involved in things like this?
Well, there's two. Well, the standard route, which is go to Ofsted, apply, get approved, get inspected. But the route that I'm talking about is holding your hands route, which is like this. So you've got childcare companies which register with Ofsted to say, look, we're going to have a lot of people under us. We're going to have many childcarers under us. And that number is not capped. So I know some childcare companies who've got 100 plus, 200, 300. In fact, I think our Prime Minister's wife had a childcare company herself, so she was engaged in this business.
Right.
So, you know, it is a popular thing. So they take responsibility from Ofsted to look after the people under them. What that does is that takes away that pressure of compliance, let's put it this way. And the company then becomes your critical friend. The company then comes and checks on your compliance. The company then reports back to Ofsted on your compliance. The company, if they pick up any issues, they alert you straight away and ask you to rectify it immediately. They would come on mock inspections and check how your standards are going. They're the ones that are going to now promote you by making a paid advert on your behalf, have a page on the website, send your information on to the local authorities. You know, every local authority has a childcare provision register, a website, put you on there. And not only that, take care of all the other bits, the bits that people don't like. For example, managing the payroll for them. collecting fees, which is a tough one, chasing parents for fees.
Yeah,
We all
yeah,
know
yeah.
how hard it is. They'll do all that for you.
So who should stay-at-home mums get in touch with?
So stay-at-home moms have got the option of going to these childcare companies. That's the word, childcare companies.
Right.
There's many of them. As I said, I'm directly working with one, but
Yeah.
we don't want to sort of commercialize this because this is
Yeah.
more about creating awareness.
Yeah.
But the idea is that this company is taking over the headache
Yeah.
of the administration, registration,
Sure.
compliance.
Sure,
You just offer good quality childcare.
Fair enough. But if people wanted to reach out to you, could they do that? Like
Of course, yes. We would be delighted to assist. And one of the ways I look at this is a way of empowering our community. I won't name the community, but there is another religious community in this country where the 70% of the children go to their faith schools. Unbelievable. Us Muslims at the moment, we are stuck at, 5 to 6% at the moment, struggling to go beyond that. So imagine 5 to 6% of our children go to Muslim educational provisions, whatever they are. And that community, 70% of the children go to those.
all the way to what? Primary school, all the way to secondary?
Across the board, minus university,
Really?
minus college. In fact, that very religious community, they've advanced their children so much, is their children in secondary school are becoming actuaries. You know how tough that is.
Wow.
And they're just going for ACCA, they're going for actual qualifications sitting in secondary school.
Right.
Purely because they've grabbed the education by the horns.
And they're good quality schools.
Yes, and as I said, they're producing the finest leaders in this country, and we see them everywhere, wherever we go.
Yeah.
So as a Muslim community, I believe this is our opportunity now to at least start at the bottom. Never mind, maybe at the top we are struggling to get with the percentages. What about the bottom? What if 70% of our Muslim children could go to Muslim childcare provisions or nurseries?
And what would be the ambition about raising the quality? Because people sometimes think, oh, Islamic school, Islamic nursery, quality is not going to be that good.
I think the fundamental concern around Islamic schools at the moment is the money that the parents pay. They are paying I got to criticize that saying, caveman's days fees and expecting today's education. That doesn't work, I'm sorry to say. If you want to live in London, you got to pay the price. I live in Birmingham. With all due respect, I pay a lot less. So that is what it is, end of the day. Muslim schools are struggling nowadays because the parents are paying unrealistic fees. But this opportunity that I'm also saying could improve our Islamic school provisions as well, or help them in one way, which is purely by this. If we have these mums now empowered financially, right? Us as parents, where Islamic education is close to our heart, I changed towns for my daughter to put her in an Islamic school. It's close to our heart. Now, if you're empowered financially, you will pay those fees. So let's imagine a good Islamic school is only going to cost you £7,000 to £8,000, £9,000 max. If you are earning about £22,000 as a minimum, you can now afford it. You can afford that good quality Islamic school. With these nurseries, the good thing is the funding is not a concern. You are getting mainstream funding. There's no excuse for you not to do well, because you're getting mock inspections, you're getting high quality training, you are getting the ability to meet other sort of child carers who've done well. I mean, there is example of a sister in Leicester, set up a wonderful provision for mostly Muslim children come to her provision. She's got a waiting list. And the beauty is, when it comes to nurseries, lots of formalities and red tape that stop you. When it's childcare, remember, the children can have a customized education. Right. Purely because taking them down to Legoland is not going to take you, a month's preparation, right? Book the ticket, look at the risk assessment, off you go. Going, for example, for slightly older children, going to the zoo is not going to be a month's preparation. It's going to be a day's preparation. It's going to open that doors to that high quality that does exist. Taking toddlers, for example, for swimming activities or things like those, that is going to become easy. Taking them to the park is going to be easy. Nature reserve is going to, botanical gardens, you name it.
And do you need training for this stuff?
Yes. So the beauty is that childcare companies train their own the terminology is actually early years practitioners, right? So they're not nannies are different. They also provide an education. So this is the difference between them. So these early years practitioners, what they are going to be able to do is get bespoke training. So you don't necessarily have to have a degree or a level 3 in childcare. You go through that bespoke program and you're measured against that.
And how long does that take? Could you do that part-time?
The beauty is that you could do that entirely online.
Oh, right.
And you could do it entirely part-time, and it's only 6 months long.
Right, okay. And that costs money, I presume?
Well, the beauty is there's a limited offer. Like we say, buy one, get one free going on at the moment. Well, the beauty now is that it's entirely free.
Really?
Right. So the government has decided, as part of this big push, 300 million plus push, they have put in up to £1,200 per sort of early years practitioners who's going to open up the new childcare business, to encourage more people to come in, because where are they going to put all these kids, 9 months old, and nurseries are full anyway. So what will happen is that the training money, customization of their home that is required, DBS checks for them and any other adult in the house, risk assessments, insurance, the whole cost. Once you get registered, you invest initially £600-700, whatever that is, but the entire cost is paid back as soon as you take your first child.
Right. Up to a max?
£1,200.
£1,200, okay, fine.
And that is really the cost anyway. So that essentially, it's free. Not only that, let me tell you, they could become training hub for other sisters who would like to go into this sector, because the early years apprenticeship can apply to at-home childcare as well. Essentially what they could do is actually take apprentices, train them up, empower them, and they could be the next business openers. And
Ashfaque, I wanted to ask about this whole, SRE situation and the whole tarbiyah side of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to navigate that. As Muslim parents, it can be quite tricky, right?
As someone who's very familiar with that, because we've been part of the establishment and an advisor on SRE as it kind of went along, we had significant reservations and we aired them quite openly and frankly. What is happening, unfortunately, at the moment is many schools are not giving the parents their due rights. Many are, but many aren't. Sometimes what tends to happen is parents are unaware of what curriculum is being taught. Sometimes when parents request to view it, the cooperation is not there. And what is also happening sometimes is that the schools are not necessarily performing their statutory obligations, rather going on top, something that they've decided themselves. So what the government has done very recently, they have reviewed, as you're aware, some of the guidance, which was published very recently in the autumn. What is going to happen going forward is that there will be further reviews that will take place. Us as a Muslim community, we have our concerns on RSE on various fronts. One of the substantial one is around what kind of curriculum is being taught. The framework as a whole is actually well intended, because the S part is not everything. The framework is huge. For example, the framework talks about healthy living, how to live a healthy life. The framework talks about how to stay safe online. Right? These are very necessary things for today's children. They're navigating that space. But the S part is where the concern comes, where schools use curriculum which they haven't consulted their parents properly on. They haven't taken their parents' views and concerns on, where they should do. Legitimate concerns need to be respected because parents are the voice of the school. Many governing bodies have not performed consultations in an appropriate way. And what that led to, unfortunately, is in some cases, very inappropriate curriculum for the context and the societies they're in. And many parents struggle with that. And as I said, me directly as a parent at times, I've had concerns with the school themselves saying, what is going on here? Why am I not being consulted? Why don't I have a voice? I want to see what you're teaching my child. That is my right. That is my right under this framework.
That's a right, is it?
It is your right to actually be able to see what kind of curriculum is being taught to your child. And in order to navigate this space, there are two great initiatives. One was by the Association of Muslim Schools, whereby Muslim schools, nearly 120 across the country, teach the Islamic RSE program, which is contextualized, which is the framework itself is teaching all the objectives, but is contextualized from a Muslim perspective.
And is that freely available to people?
Well, for Muslim schools, it's available at an incredibly discounted rate for Muslim schools or members. For madaris and people like the other institutions, it is also available at a very affordable rate. There's been a massive investment, nearly 100K investment that's gone into that. But what is coming next is another curriculum which is going to be sort of contextual and friendly to all faiths, including parents who have got reservations around how their children are taught. And what this will do is it will address the concerns of all faiths, be it Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, Sikh, Catholic. It will address all their concerns.
And who's doing this, sorry?
So this is initiated as a project by the association.
Right. Of Muslim schools.
Of Muslim schools.
Right.
It is ready to launch when the review of RSE will sort of finally conclude, which is probably imminent. That is going to come up, and I think the reviewers have taken on board concerns raised by parents. Parents had significant concerns. Religious communities had significant concerns. Those are going to come in. But what this will do, hopefully, inshallah, is be the quality mark to say the RSE does meet all the challenges that the children are going to face, but it is still appropriate. It is still appropriate and contextualized, where children learn how to live in today's society. They learn how to behave with people of all views and sexualities. But at the same time, the children are learning something that is appropriate.
Yeah. And Ashfaque, I wanted to touch on, before we wrap up, around a new partnership that you're part of with Little Caliphs, which is, I think, the largest nursery chain in Europe or in Malaysia or
in the world.
In the world, wow.
Yeah. So lovely to think that Muslim organization has got the largest franchise in the world. If you, for example, in the UK, if you look at Leapfrog, you're talking about 100 something franchises. Go to America, there's some very big ones, few hundred, 200, 300. But alhamdulillah, Little Caliphs, which is like a leadership academy.
Right.
Leadership academy, it's a bit bonkers to think about leadership at that little baby age. But what does Islam say to us? They said that is the developmental age, right? That little baby age, the nursery age, is the developmental age. That's where they actually like sponges. That's where they pick up everything. Yeah. So this is basically brainchild of Dr. Sabaria. She is an expert and a researcher in early childhood education. And it was done on the context that the kullu mawludin, whenever they're born on the fitrah, remember, right? And all we're doing now is nurturing that fitrah. And what they have actually come up with is creating leadership skills from that nursery age. Things around martial arts for babies, things around brain enhancement and brain enhancement exercises, things around looking at leadership building by team building, right? Quranic education, how to do Quran and Qiraat to these little babies from that baby age. How do you teach them to love Quran and Sunnah? How do you teach them the pillars of Islam?
And they're the largest nursery chain, you said? In the world. And so they have a whole bunch of nurseries where exactly?
So they're basically Far East. So you're talking about Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, that sort of belt, Brunei, that belt.
And they're now coming across to the UK?
They're coming across to Middle East, Europe and North America as well at the same time.
And they're going to set up nurseries here?
So,
or you can take a franchise out with them?
Yeah, so we've got an MOU in place. The idea behind that is that what they're going to do is to bring in that high quality research around Islamic tarbiyah and bring it to the UK. Because in the UK we've got lots of small nursery chains.
Yeah.
There's few nursery chains which are good in number, but none of them like huge nursery chains. So what they're going to bring in, that huge R&D that they have got. Yes, one other thing, they teach Arabic as well. To little babies as well, which we as adults sometimes struggle. But they've actually come up with the research of how to do it, and it works. So it's not something that's sort of they're experimenting on, it works. So the idea they want to bring in is that bring that quality, bring that Islamic tarbiyah, so it is contextualized for Muslim communities. Indeed, it is our right to teach our children that way.
So they're going to come across and set up nurseries?
So two things. One is, of course, they're going to provide support to anybody that is going to early childhood education, be it
Okay.
even at-home mums who would love to make their provision much more customized for Muslim children.
Yeah.
But at the same time, look at opportunities for taking over nurseries, opening new nurseries,
The whole
and at the
franchise
same
model.
and at the same time looking at childcare in a non-domestic premises or non-dom premises,
Sure,
like your office
sure,
here
sure.
or other buildings, or indeed the Shard if possible.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Ashfaque, this has been a real eye-opener. I think there's so many opportunities out there, and I think within a very short period of time, you've laid out the game plan for early education for the Muslim community and how we as a community can hopefully benefit from that from a tarbiyah perspective, but also how financially as well, a lot of moms who are already looking after their kids or already homeschooling could actually put a little bit more structure around this, and this could be something that really helps with the cost of living crisis and other things like that.
Well, there's a threefold benefit for those moms, remember. One, the cost of the household could partially be met by this. Rent, rates, bills, whatever, and then gone to the skies now at the moment. Secondly, the fees. So homeschooling is not necessarily cheap. You got to pay everywhere you go.
Yeah.
The fees of that could come out of this.
Right.
And
so you can put your own kid through this if you
Yes,
want.
of course.
Ah, right. Okay.
I sometimes joke it's a bit of a Musa al-Islam situation,
Right.
where the mom got to feed him but got paid.
Wow.
So remember, you can keep your own children with you.
I see.
And the government is now considering the possibility of not putting them in the ratio.
Wow.
So which means your kid comes free.
Interesting. Jazakallah khair, Ashfaque. This has been a real eye-opener, and inshallah we'll see how many nurseries pop up or preschools pop up after
with
this.
your large network, I'm sure we're going to have that 70%. That's our target.
And is there a place that people can reach out to you? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on
I'm on
Twitter?
LinkedIn. I'm quite publicly available if you Google me out.
Fantastic.
Happy to help. I mean, the whole idea is not this individual business, but it's about our community. Getting through that door not in a way when everyone else is kind of done and gone. Let's get in there right at the start.
Jazakallah khair once again, Ashfaque. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And it's been a privilege to be with you, and I hope, inshallah, this message will go far and wide. We want our community to be there right at the outset of it, not latecomers into this process.
Barakallah.
Jazakallah.